The room was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of the television screen. David, 28, male, short brown hair, athletic build, leaned forward, his eyes locked onto the news broadcast. "Is this real?" he muttered, voice full of disbelief. The moon landing footage played again. Neil Armstrong's famous words echoed through the speakers. "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." David shifted uneasily, questioning everything he had ever been taught. The conspiracy theories he'd heard growing up were suddenly too plausible. Was it all staged? He couldn't shake the feeling that the truth had been hidden for decades. Anna, 25, female, long blonde hair, slim build, glanced over at him, her brow furrowed. "David, you're not really buying into this, are you?" But David was already lost in thought, the mysteries of the past starting to unravel before him. David didn't sleep that night. Instead, he spent hours researching, scouring online forums, watching countless documentaries, and reading everything he could find. The evidence was overwhelming, yet it still didn't make sense. Was the government hiding the truth? Or was this just the product of years of doubt and misinformation? He stared at a grainy image on his laptop, a still shot of the lunar lander. "No flag should behave like that in a vacuum," he muttered to himself. Anna came into the room, her face pale. "You're obsessed, David," she said softly. "You need to take a break." But David didn't hear her. He was already lost in another article, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. "I can't stop now," he said, eyes wide with the need for answers. David sat at his desk, staring at the pile of documents before him. His mind raced, each fact pointing to one unsettling conclusion. He ran his fingers over the edge of a photograph, a grainy image from the Apollo 11 mission. The lunar lander, framed by stark blackness, was eerily different from the versions he'd seen in school. Was it possible the world had been deceived for over 50 years? Jenna walked in, her face tired but determined. "We're getting closer," she said, breaking the silence. David looked up, meeting her gaze. "But at what cost, Jenna? What if the truth is something we're not ready to hear?" The more David researched, the more questions arose. Strange anomalies in the footage, timing inconsistencies. The shadows on the moon's surface didn't align with the supposed light source. Jenna glanced at him from across the room, already knowing what he was thinking. "It's not just a theory anymore, is it?" she asked softly. David didn't answer immediately, his focus unbroken. "No, Jenna," he said finally. "This could be something far bigger than we ever imagined, and we're on the brink of exposing it." But deep down, David felt the weight of what that meant. To reveal this would mean going up against the most powerful forces on Earth. After hours of combing through the evidence, David stumbled upon something that made his heart race. An old government memo detailing the potential consequences of the moon landing being faked. It was as if the world had always known and was just waiting for someone to notice. He looked up at Jenna, who was poring over a map of government agencies. "This is it," he muttered. They knew from the beginning. Jenna walked over, her face tense as she read the document. "We can't let this go, David. We can't just walk away from it." David nodded, the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. There was no turning back now. As David and Jenna began their search for answers, the weight of what they were uncovering settled on them like a heavy fog. The more they dug, the more questions arose. They studied the photos, the videos, and the conspiracy theories, but something felt off. The footage from the Apollo mission didn't line up, grainy pixels revealing subtle inconsistencies that could not be ignored. "We have to know the truth," David said, his voice filled with determination. "If the landing was faked, why is it still being hidden?" Jenna nodded, but uncertainty clouded her expression. "If this is true, it's not just a lie, it's an entire system built on deception." The search took them deep into obscure archives and secretive government files, a trail that led to more disturbing discoveries. David found a series of interviews with former NASA employees, their voices filled with regret and fear. They spoke of things they weren't allowed to say, hinting at the suppression of vital evidence. "There's something they don't want us to know," David muttered as he reviewed the tapes. Jenna leaned closer, her eyes wide. "What if they've been hiding this all along?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. A cold chill settled in as they realized they were stumbling upon a conspiracy far bigger than they had ever imagined. Their investigation brought them to an underground meeting of conspiracy theorists. The room was filled with people obsessed with exposing the truth, each one more desperate than the last. David and Jenna sat at the back, listening to wild theories and claims that the moon landing was staged by the government. One man, a former journalist, leaned in and whispered to them, "It's not just about the footage. There are people in high places who will do anything to keep the truth from getting out." His voice was low and urgent. "They can't afford for you to succeed." The warning sent a ripple of dread through the pair. What had they gotten themselves into? The more they learned, the more they realized how dangerous their pursuit of the truth had become. David and Jenna were followed, their every move watched. It wasn't just the authorities who were keeping an eye on them, but shadowy figures that they couldn't quite identify. Late one night, David found a cryptic message on his phone. "Stop now or you'll regret it." It was followed by a chilling, distorted voice message that made his blood run cold. "We know what you're doing. You'll never get the truth." They were running out of time, and the stakes had never been higher. "We can't back down," David said, his resolve unwavering. "We've come too far." With danger closing in, David and Jenna made their final push. They discovered a former astronaut who had once hinted at the truth, but had since disappeared. They tracked him down to a secluded location, hoping he would provide the key to unlock everything. The old man, now disheveled and broken, sat in front of them, his eyes haunted by the memories of what he had witnessed. "They never told the public the full story," he whispered, his voice trembling. "What happened up there wasn't what you think." He hesitated before revealing the shocking truth. "There's evidence. Evidence that could change everything." The air was thick with anticipation as David and Jenna prepared to dive into the astronaut's story. The cryptic message he had shared with them promised something that could shake the world to its core. They entered a small nondescript storage room, filled with files and government documents. "This is it," David whispered, scanning the rows of dusty boxes. The astronaut had provided them with the key to unlock the mystery, the secret photographs that weren't supposed to exist. They had always known something was off, but now they were on the verge of exposing it. "Do you think this will prove everything?" Jenna asked, her voice full of doubt. "It has to," David replied, though his voice faltered. With shaking hands, David flipped through the file, revealing old photographs from the Apollo mission that had been deliberately hidden. There, among the grainy images, was a startling sight. An astronaut's reflection in the lunar module's window. But it wasn't the reflection of an astronaut in full gear. It was someone else. "This doesn't make sense," Jenna said, her voice a mixture of shock and confusion. "Who is that?" The photographs were riddled with anomalies, shadows that shouldn't be there, and strange details that raised more questions than they answered. "This could be the proof," David muttered, but doubt lingered. Was this evidence, or just another piece of the puzzle? The investigation was starting to spiral out of control. David and Jenna were no longer just uncovering hidden photographs. They were now digging into old government records and classified files that seemed to confirm their worst fears. The deeper they went, the more they realized how far the deception had run. There were mentions of other missions, questionable communications, and even secret meetings between top NASA officials and government leaders. "This isn't just a conspiracy," David said, his voice trembling. "This is something we were never meant to know." Jenna nodded, her expression grim. "And now we're too deep. There's no turning back." As the pieces started to fit together, David and Jenna realized they were about to uncover a truth so profound that it could unravel the very fabric of history. They learned about a secret project, known only to a select few, designed to create a fake lunar landing. It was an operation so elaborate that it involved manipulating not only the media, but also the international community. "This is what they were hiding," Jenna said softly, her voice filled with disbelief. "A lie of this magnitude." David finished her sentence. Would shake the foundation of everything we know. The gravity of what they were about to reveal settled in. The final revelation hit them like a tidal wave. David uncovered an old government memo that confirmed the plan, how the moon landing was faked to win the space race against the Soviet Union. We'll give the world a show, and in return, they'll trust us with the future, the memo said, signed by high-ranking officials. As David read the words aloud, the room fell into stunned silence. Jenna sat back in her chair, shaking her head in disbelief. "We've just uncovered the greatest lie in modern history," she whispered. But they knew that exposing this truth came with immense danger. What they had just learned could cost them everything. The walls were closing in. David and Jenna had crossed a line that they couldn't go back from. As they prepared to release their findings, they received a warning. A voice on the other end of the phone, gravelly and cold, told them, "You don't know what you're dealing with. Drop it now or you'll regret it." The message was clear. The people behind the cover-up were watching, and they would stop at nothing to keep the truth hidden. Jenna shook her head. "This is bigger than us, David. They won't stop." But David was resolute. "We've come this far. We're not turning back." As they pressed on with their investigation, David and Jenna uncovered more layers of the conspiracy. Secret government documents, testimonies from whistleblowers, and even photographs that were taken before the moon landing, showing signs of manipulation. They realized that the astronauts, who were believed to be heroes, were mere actors in a global performance. But with each new revelation, the danger to their lives increased. Jenna was worried. "This is insane. We're playing with fire, David." But David, driven by his need for truth, didn't hesitate. "We have to do this. We have no choice." As their findings grew more damning, David and Jenna found themselves targeted. One night, as they returned to their apartment, David found the door slightly ajar. The air inside felt cold, and the sense of invasion was immediate. Documents were missing. Their computers had been tampered with. Someone had been searching for their research. David was furious, but Jenna's voice was trembling. "We have to go, David. It's too dangerous now." But David's resolve was unshaken. "No, we've only just begun. The world deserves to know." Despite the increasing danger, David and Jenna pushed forward. They knew the truth had to come out. As they delved deeper into the government archives, they uncovered a hidden memo. A memo that had been classified for decades. It outlined a covert operation, not just to fake the moon landing, but to manipulate global politics. The memo detailed how the U.S. government had staged the entire event to maintain global dominance during the Cold War. The discovery was explosive. Jenna couldn't believe what they were reading. "This is worse than I thought," she whispered, her hands trembling. But David was resolute. "It's the truth, and it's time the world knew." With the final piece of the puzzle in place, David and Jenna knew they had no choice but to expose the truth. But the forces against them were stronger than they had imagined. As they prepared to leak their findings, David received a visit from an old friend, someone he hadn't seen in years. The friend, Victor, was now a high-ranking government official. "You don't know what you're dealing with," Victor said, his voice low and urgent. "This is bigger than you think. If you go through with this, there's no turning back." But David stood firm. "The truth needs to come out, Victor, even if it costs me everything." As David and Jenna continued their pursuit of the truth, they found themselves in a race against time. The stakes were higher than ever. They had made copies of the classified documents, but the government had already caught wind of their investigation. One night, as they prepared to leak the files to the press, the power went out. Jenna panicked. "It's them. They're on to us." David remained calm, his mind racing. "No, it's just a coincidence. We need to act fast." But Jenna could sense the danger closing in. "If we do this, there's no going back." David didn't respond. He didn't need to. The decision had already been made. With no time to waste, they uploaded the files to an encrypted server, sending them to a trusted journalist who had agreed to help them expose the truth. As David hit send, he glanced at Jenna. "It's done," he said. But before they could celebrate, the phone rang. It was the journalist. "You've just unleashed something much bigger than you think. The world isn't ready for this." Jenna grabbed the phone from David, her voice trembling. "What do you mean? What's happening?" The journalist's voice crackled. "They're coming for you. I don't know how much time you have." As the journalist's warning echoed in their minds, David and Jenna prepared to disappear. They knew they couldn't stay in their apartment any longer. But before they could leave, the door was kicked in. Armed agents flooded the room, and David barely had time to react. They moved swiftly, grabbing his laptop and files, leaving Jenna standing frozen in the corner. David struggled but was quickly restrained. "You don't have to do this," David said through gritted teeth. "The truth is out there. People will know." But the lead agent didn't flinch. "It's too late for that. You should have never started this." In the aftermath of their capture, David and Jenna were taken to a secure facility. They were interrogated for hours, but no matter how much pressure they faced, David remained silent. The agents, frustrated by his resistance, turned their attention to Jenna. "Tell us what you know. This doesn't have to be harder than it already is," one of the agents said, his tone cold. Jenna felt the weight of the moment, but she was determined not to break. "You'll never silence us. The truth will come out," she whispered. David met her eyes from across the room, and in that moment, they both knew they had made the right choice, no matter what happened next. After days of questioning, David and Jenna were finally released, though not without a warning. They were told to drop the case and never speak of the moon landing again. But they were free for now. As they walked out of the facility, David turned to Jenna. "They can't stop us. We've already done the hardest part." Jenna nodded, but a trace of fear lingered in her eyes. "What if they come for us again?" David smiled. "Let them. The truth is bigger than them." After their release, David and Jenna lay low, careful not to draw attention. But despite their efforts, the world had already started asking questions. News outlets picked up on the leaked documents, and conspiracy theorists from all over began to connect the dots. David sat in his apartment, watching a live broadcast. The host spoke of the moon landing and the strange inconsistencies in the footage. Jenna entered, a look of concern on her face. "What if they come after us again? What if they silence everyone who starts to ask questions?" David stared at the screen. "It's too late now. They can't control the truth forever." Days turned into weeks, and the media frenzy grew. More people came forward, backing up David and Jenna's claims with their own theories and findings. Yet, every time they tried to speak publicly, the keeper of secrets seemed one step ahead, discrediting them at every turn. They were now public enemies, labeled as extremists, and their every move was watched. In a quiet moment, Jenna asked, "David, are we sure this is worth it? Are we ready to face what's coming?" David looked at her, determination in his eyes. "We don't have a choice anymore. The truth is out. We can't go back." A breakthrough came when David uncovered an unexpected ally. A former government official who had worked on the Apollo program. Martin had spent years compiling evidence of the cover-up, but had never been able to go public. "I can't do this alone," Martin told them in a hushed voice, meeting David and Jenna in a secluded diner. "But I've been keeping something that can expose everything." Jenna looked at him warily. "Why now? What's changed?" Martin's eyes flickered. "'Cause I know I won't have peace until the truth is known." The documents Martin provided were a game changer. They detailed covert meetings, hidden agendas, and evidence of tampering with the moon landing footage. But the more they uncovered, the more dangerous the situation became. The keeper of secrets had resources everywhere, and soon, the three of them found themselves in hiding. David and Jenna were no longer just fighting for the truth, they were now fighting for their lives. "They'll never stop," David said one night, pacing in the small apartment they were staying in. "They'll stop at nothing to bury this." Jenna nodded. "But we can't let them win. We owe it to the world." The night before they were to reveal everything, David and Jenna received an anonymous message. "You're on the right track. Keep pushing. But be careful. The truth is dangerous." It was the final piece of the puzzle, and the moment of truth was almost within reach. David sat with the phone in his hand, staring at the screen. "Tomorrow," he said, "everything changes." Jenna nodded, but there was a trace of fear in her eyes. "And we may never be the same after that." David looked at her, and for the first time there was a hint of uncertainty in his gaze. "We've come too far to turn back now." The morning came, and with it, the release. David and Jenna stood in front of a large crowd of reporters, cameras flashing all around them. The weight of the moment was almost too much to bear. The documents were in hand, ready to be shared. "This is it," David said, his voice steady, though his heart raced. "We can't stop now." Jenna squeezed his hand, her eyes filled with resolve. "Let's make sure the world knows the truth." They walked to the podium, knowing that the world would never be the same after today. The press conference started, and the first question came swiftly. "Why should we believe you? What proof do you have that the moon landing was faked?" David took a deep breath, pulling out the documents. "These are the records from within NASA's own files, never meant to be seen by the public. What you've been told, what you've been shown, it's all lies. We've been deceived for decades." The room fell silent. Every word he spoke seemed to hang in the air, heavy with the weight of its truth. But as soon as he finished, the attacks began. The keeper of secrets had their own people planted in the crowd, trying to discredit them. As the media backlash began, David and Jenna knew they weren't going to make it through without a fight. The keeper of secrets had made sure of that. False accusations, threats, and media manipulation followed. The world's media painted them as radicals, pushing the narrative that they were simply seeking attention. But as their story began to spread, more people started to question the truth. Slowly, the skeptics turned into believers. David and Jenna watched as their names became synonymous with the truth, as their fight gained momentum. "It's not just about us anymore," David said, his voice tinged with a mixture of anger and pride. "It's about all the people who have been lied to." Just when it seemed like the pressure would break them, David received a message, an encrypted file from Martin, the former government official who had once been their ally. The file contained even more explosive evidence: hidden footage, secret recordings, and testimonies from whistleblowers. It was the final piece of the puzzle. David stared at the file, his heart racing. "This is it," he whispered. Jenna nodded, determination etched across her face. "We're not backing down now." With this new evidence, they knew they had the power to expose the truth, no matter the cost. The next morning, David and Jenna released the new evidence. The world watched in stunned silence as the video footage of the truth was laid bare. David knew there would be consequences, but he also knew they had done what was right. The fallout was swift and brutal. Politicians, media moguls, and powerful corporations came after them, desperate to bury the truth once and for all. But for the first time, David felt a sense of peace. He had fought for the truth, no matter the cost. And even if the world turned against him, the truth could never be erased.